Uh, I had the debate earlier today with Rick Neuheisel on my show on Sirius XM, and he complains that a game like that should be played later in the season. And I said nonsense. I think it's great that we have, right, McCall, like we have a buildup, we have excitement at this point early on in November. I think there's a lot of value to it. The question is, though, there's been all these people talking today. Michigan State, do they belong in this thing? We know Kansas and Duke and Kentucky certainly have that pedigree. Michigan State had it. Arguable, do they still? Kevin, would you replace Michigan State or keep them in this thing?
Well, I wouldn't kick anybody out of the Champions Classic. I think the Champions Classic is a brand exercise. If we really wanted to do the champions, we would just cycle the four most recent champions over and over again, right? That would be the true Champions Classic. But we're not doing that because we want Duke in there and we want Kentucky in there, right? So look, I think Michigan State does feel like they're lagging behind a little bit. Like talent wise, that team did not look quite on the same level as Kansas, Kentucky, or Duke, both in terms of bodies and athleticism, but also just like overall like skill level and shot making ability. I just think they're further behind right now, but it's still one of the premier brands and a huge name on the sideline, obviously. So I don't think we need to be booting Michigan State anytime soon. Now, look, if there's an opportunity to get UConn involved in this thing, by all means, like let's do it. Right. And maybe there's a sixth team we can get in. Let's do it as a triple header. Right. Is it Arizona? Is it Gonzaga? Is it Carolina? Right. Like there's got to be another brand we could pair in with UConn and get this thing to a triple header. And if we can make that work, I'm all for it. Right. But I don't think we need to be in replacement mode because Michigan State's had a couple down years.
McCall, you're in agreement?
I'm in total agreement. Okay. Tom Izzo's been the head coach at Michigan State since 1995. The only 2 years he hasn't gone to the NCAA tournament are his first 2 years. So we're not booting Michigan State out. And the fact that we've seen these legends walk away from the game and say, you know what? I've had enough of this. I'm not dealing with the transfer portal. I'm not dealing with NIL. Like, he's not doing that. And he's still doing it at a high level. So we don't need to kick Michigan State. We need more nights like this in college basketball early in the season. That's what we need, because we need to create more of a buzz. And I could not disagree with your colleague, Rick Neuheisel, anymore. He's still focused on football. He's a football guy. We need more nights like we had last night because there needs to be more of a buzz. They're never going to push college basketball back. They're not going to start the season in December and all of a sudden take away March Madness and turn it into May Madness. They're not doing that. What they need to do is play more marquee matchups. Play Kansas versus North Carolina on a home and home instead of a neutral site. Have the Champions Classic. There needs to be more buzz. Like UConn even. And I know UConn's schedule is getting ready to get really, really difficult, but they played Lemoyne tonight. Nobody's tuning into that. We're talking about the team that won back-to-back national championships. Like, we need more of these matchups. And I give credit to the coaches because they're not afraid to play them. Bill Self, coming out of the North Carolina game, just went and played in the Champions Classic against Michigan State, another Hall of Famer in Tom Izzo. You know, Duke, them playing against Kentucky on a neutral site. There needs to be more games like that early in the season so there's more buzz around college basketball, because right now it's all about football. Even during the Champions Classic last night, we got to go to the selection show, which I guess every single week now we're going to have a selection show. Every Tuesday, there'll be a different selection show until this college football playoff is over. So how do we create more buzz around college basketball early in the season? It's by having nights like last night. It's matchups like last night that people are going to tune into, because nobody's tuning into UConn Lemoyne. Nobody's tuning into that game. They're just not. And we need more of a buzz early in the season. I mean, you look at the slate of games tonight. There just was nothing that like jumps off the page. You're like, man, this is unbelievable. This is what I want to watch. Last night you did. Last night you wanted to watch. And there used to be a buzz around Midnight Madness. It was October 15th or 16th. Everyone was excited. It was the first day of practice. These teams are practicing all summer. Midnight Madness is not even existent anymore. how do we create more of an atmosphere, more of excitement around college basketball in that first week, the first 2 weeks? And they did it last night. We need more games like that.
How else would you do it besides that? Like, what kind of games, Kevin? Would you you agree with that?
Look, as much on college campuses as possible in November and December, because again, first of all, showcasing the incredible atmospheres, but also, right, like we need to build the next generation of fans, right? Like we need college kids to care about college basketball games just like they care about college football games, right? And maybe they can't like party in the streets for 8 hours beforehand, but like go to Fog Allen on Friday night and watch Kansas Carolina and tell me you don't want to be a part of that for the rest of your life, right? And that's the same thing with Purdue Alabama, which is at Mackey on Friday night. Like we've got some really good games. Like overall, I think the schedule this year is better than it has been the last couple. But again, the more the merrier. And I think the one thing that I always come back to, these games are not going to hurt you if you lose them, right? Duke is not
100%.
worse off for losing yesterday, right?
They're better.
Duke learned something about its team, right? Carolina learned something from going on the road to Kansas that they wouldn't have learned from playing Elon again, right? Like that to me is what I keep coming back to. Like if you're a top program, you need to go out and play these games. If you want to be a championship level team, these are the types of games you consistently play to see where you are. And UConn has done it the last 2 years, right? They went out and won PK 85. And then last year they were playing Gonzaga, and they played Texas, and they played Indiana, who obviously didn't turn out to be as good. But, on paper, that's a monster game, right? Like UConn has challenged itself in the non-conference. And then when they get to the NCAA tournament, all right, we've seen this. We've seen everything that they can throw at us, right? And I think everyone needs that mentality.